a lot of talks about academia plus industry relationship. And I've participated in few platforms. And I'm very sorry to say that the way it happens is very different. No, it's not a very constructive way of doing it. If you see these government institutes, yeah, have you ever seen anyone who has the courage to come and change the course in the course they have for builders or for machines or even in the engineering college? NITs, very good NITs, top NITs, they give us very good engineers. But is there a willingness? And even if someone will come with the willingness, the change will require a lot of bureaucratic decisions to be taken. I don't know how many.
They never get taken.
It will never happen.
Easy for them.
So this is the problem. And you know, people who will set up industries in India will need to go and get their people trained outside. It is. I don't see this happening in India. And this needs a big change if we want to be competing with the global companies, different countries. This has to change. The basic things have to change.
Sanjeev, let me take this one step further. Here you're talking about the requirements are clearly the blue collar and the white collar. At both ends you have problems, right? When I was going through the site, you know, when we say manufacturing as a segment, about 60–70% of the people who want to look at manufacturing, it is the engineers who apply for manufacturing, right? It is an engineering heavy. Is it that manufacturing is positioned as an engineer's or an ITI trained person's domain? Or is it multiple functions within manufacturing which you probably have not positioned as manufacturing is the place to come to? Is it a problem?
Yes, I think what you have touched upon is possibly a branding issue of the sector itself. If you look at the cool quotient that I encounter at any of the campuses that we visit, the preference for any graduating engineer is for IT or IT-enabled services, or possibly is looking to take the first flight out of this country. I'm just taking an example. Similar crisis was possibly being faced by the Indian Defence Forces. And they thought about it and then decided that while this is a nationalistic opportunity for the citizens to capitalize on, the job needs to be sold, the job needs to be marketed. So in other words, it needs to be branded. The manufacturing sector has not invested so much in positioning themselves and their jobs vis-a-vis the IT and IT-enabled services. If you look at some of the ad campaigns which has run over a period of time, and your channel would also must have promoted them. One of the finest examples which I can cite here is Infosys. How Infosys has managed to sell their job. They brand an employee, they talk about the life at Infosys, they talk about the career progression that you are going to do, and they also tell you that this is not that the life ends at Infosys. Possibly you have a life beyond the Infosys campus. Take the case of Tata Steel. When they advertised, when the TV was still taking roots in the country, when they came to TV, they said, we also make steel. So this was the whole positioning of the company, whole branding of the company, which was taken to a new level entirely by Tata Steel. And in one go, they created a brand for themselves, which possibly nobody can come close to. So I would imagine that the manufacturing sector has to do a lot more to position themselves as an option, as a first option, or possibly among the first three options. And I know of certain campuses where this kind of a sentiment persists. I went to a School of Mines once. I was in SRO in those days, so I went to a School of Mines there. And once we had done our exercise, we were approached by a couple of students who already had an offer, and they were willing to let go opportunities from companies as known as Cognizant. And they said that we want to work for this sector because we know that my heart lies there. So he was not, and just because he was He was not wanting to lose an opportunity of getting a job, but his heart was not there. Same, my alma mater is Birla Institute of Technology, Mesa. Go to Mesa and you'll find that people wait for the manufacturing jobs to come in. We look forward to companies like SR, Jindal. I've worked for Jindal, so I can always share my experience. So they wait for these opportunities. But I also notice that the feedback from the student community is that we don't seem to know what kind of life we are offering. So that is one of the biggest challenges, and that is why possibly we are only able to attract bottom of the barrel or slightly above that. But when we were running exercises of this kind, when we were hiring GTs in large number in JSP, we were hiring 500 GTs odd every year. Look at the students I was attracting. I was not attracting the top talent from NITs or IITs. We would have a different program for them. Why was that happening? Possibly because we have not been able to sell them. So manufacturing was always considered a very blue collar, even for engineers, whereas their preference is for a white collar job. So they will possibly work for the Wipros and the Infosys and the others in the sector, but not come forward to us. And it will be a choice, a compromise they would make before joining them. And that was the reason that we encountered very high attrition rates for GETs. So the challenge is clearly before me. There's a couple of things which I see. Following teaching standards in many of the institutions has given me a talent which is not ready for the industry today. As Mr. Bareja very clearly said that they have to invest a lot more. Possibly we can avoid this investment if we can manage a program in association with the campuses, then these things can be addressed. Competition with IT and IT-enabled services will continue. It is not going to abate in any way. So we better get prepared how we are going to meet this challenge. The cool quotient of manufacturing job has to be increased. People will have to be given a romantic picture of the job that they're going to have.
Not only given, but created.
Created, possibly. Very right to say.
Yeah.
So these are the things that possibly we'll look at. I mean, I'm looking at, when I'm developing my own strategy, when I'm doing some of these things, possibly I'm also looking at developing an application, which I'm doing today, which will possibly give them a sense that this is as good as an IT sector. Today, look at some of the power plants that we are building. You go inside the control room and you will not even hear a decibel of sound, because today the equipments are so silent and you are sitting in a room which is as good as a cockpit of a modern aircraft.
Lives become far too comfortable in that.
Absolutely. So, but we have not been able to project this to the people.
I think that is a very good piece that we should pick up. Life is comfortable in the manufacturing sector.
And Jayshree, this was what I was telling about technology, has actually transformed. And so what Sanjeev said is very true, that your capability to attract talent is there.
Yeah.
But then the larger question is availability of the talent still, The real
That's
issue is not just attraction.
Yeah.
Attraction can be there because technology has actually made everything a grand leveler, and whosoever, whether irrespective of the sector you are, whosoever finds a new angle would be able to attract talent. So that is the issue. Attraction is a separate issue, but availability in the larger sector, I mean the competence that's required today is entirely different, and we have to address this issue first.
What my experience has been, actually, the way we see mushroom growth in educational institutions. Every day you see advertisements of several of these technical institutions coming up, and there are hordes of people who are just joining them, knowing not what kind of standards they're going to encounter. So that tells me that the problem which Mr. Bhatoria has just cited, how are we addressing that? I don't think we are ready to address this problem in the right way. So we have to do a lot more.
Absolutely. The gap is humongous.
So when you're addressing this gap, maybe Blessing you would like to take this up. Is the intervention at the curriculum stage? Is the intervention at maybe the internship stages and more of these internships? Or is the intervention at the where you are marketing your own sector to the students so that it's a sector of choice? What is the intervention that the industry can do? We will come back to the academia, but I thought it would be interesting to have the industry talk first and then come to the academia.
See, anyway, you can't have one size fits all.
That's right.
And it's obviously a combination of all three solutions. Unfortunately, as Ramesh was mentioning, we may not have much control on the curriculum as such, even though we may contribute.
Yeah.
But I think the larger issue is more about how are we managing expectations on both sides.
Yeah.
So a student, typical student, engineering student, or even a polytechnic student, is actually dreaming of a job, as Sanjeev has just pointed out. And I should be working in Wipro with a smart cubicle and not be toiling my hands in a blast furnace in a steel plant. He's not looking forward to that, even though he has spent 4 years studying mechanical engineering. So I think that's something, even if, as Rajiv has said rightly, that technology has evolved, but then I think that branding has to be done. I think more than branding, we are in a situation, we are actually in a catch-22 situation. I may do the best of factories, but if it is in like a place like Gajrala, a top-class factory, or in Bharuch, we just set up a chemical factory, one of the largest units in Bharuch, which is 30, 40, 50 kilometers away from Bharuch town, and nobody wants to go there. A good engineer doesn't want to go there. He says, and even if he goes there, he wants to come out as soon as possible. So there is a limitation to how much you can brand. But then, and you can offer the best of class there, but he's like, Bharuch, let me go to Bombay, better cities where my friends are there. So he doesn't want to go there. How do you address that is a primary concern there. Second, as you said rightly, industry-academia partnership. Now we talk about it, we hear about it, like in Schneider, in our previous organization, we started a program in Bangalore with a local university. We had a curriculum, we built a curriculum, where our engineers would go there and they can get a post-graduation degree there, and which is customized to our needs. But there was a limitation. I mean, that was more like a certification course. We couldn't get it accredited as a university program and all that. So we had to go through a lot of bureaucratic hassle. So we ran the distance, but we couldn't get through. But we still ran that program. Now, I was recently reading an article in China. If you look at Shanghai and Beijing University, they are doing umpteen number of projects which are actual live projects from good Chinese companies, and they are all being run at universities. So a student is actually biting his teeth into something which a graduate engineer, even after joining after a year, may get into it. So he goes to that 1 year of graduate training program, and then he may get into such a project. Whereas in China, a student is already doing that. He's already involved there. So once he is out of college, he's back ready. Day one delivery. Here we are expecting, here when we take a GET, we expect him to start running at 100 kilometers per hour right now. The person has not even seen a door of a corporate. I mean, he's gone there as a industrial training, but that's about it. So I think that partnership has to be more, I mean, it has to be realized that it has to be taken to a larger level, something like what I just mentioned about China. And there's a natural problem about how are we branding. Branding obviously is a question, but then how do I make places like Gajrala or Bharuch more attractive to an IIT engineer or even an IT engineer is a larger question. These are two challenges, and I think we'll have to really think through to come out with solutions. I don't think there are easy solutions coming.
Manish, let me take it back to where we started. What is the biggest talent shortages that you see? And now that we've talked about the partnerships, maybe you'd like to put it in perspective.
Sure. So how, let me explain you our Whirlpool journey and what is our experience vis-a-vis the topic what we're discussing here. So I think there are certain common macro factors about the shortage of talent and what is the expectation of the industry, which is running common across all the industries, so to say, as far as the manufacturing is concerned. Now, it's a very vicious cycle. So when about 3 or 4 years back, we wanted to get only IITs as a management training program, but then we saw that there is a huge retention issues involved with that, because their aspirations and their whole mindset of making climbing the ladder very fast came into being. Then we scaled our requirements down, and then again we had the same challenge. So we thought that okay, we went to the lowest rung of the college and said okay, with the brand value what we have, probably it'll act, and with a lot of investments from our side, probably it'll act as a retention factor. But again, the same the problem persisted. We even went to the extent of sponsoring the entire course of getting the students in the third year and saying that okay, if you do a project with us based on a certain framework of evaluation, we will sponsor your entire college fees. So when they come in, and because of all these efforts, we were able to stem that fact, the challenge what we were facing. Then we realized that, and we all are talking about all those macro factors, but there was a huge insight for us in terms of what do these guys expect from the corporates, right? So that was a very striking point for us to ponder on. We had a lot of issues in terms of ensuring that how an engineer transition to other management jobs available within the organization. So I think that was the first challenge in terms of that person has a absolute flair for the engineering, absolute flair for the mechanics, but what are we investing in and how we are ensuring that that guy after 2-3 years moves to other function. From a framework perspective, you can still manage few things, but in terms of aptitude, in terms of capability, how we move in, that transition from blue to white. So that was the first challenge from a talent perspective. Second was vice versa. So we do have a lot of other support functions, or let's say for example in refrigeration, while it might be a core engineering function, we do have a huge setup for the design function. So from an organization standpoint, it will always pay off if a design guy goes back to manufacturing, right? So there is a lot of talent portability. We face a lot of resistance even in there, that a person from a design doesn't want to go back to the manufacturing. So and when we talk about talent management, a lot of good talent sitting there in their respective places, in their respective positions, but just because there is no transition, even if from a framework perspective there is a transition plan, but from a mindset perspective, right, they don't want to move, right? So from a challenge perspective, from a talent, this is our live example, live challenge, what we are facing. So I just thought I'll share it at this point.
Here we are talking primarily of talent that comes fresh out of the academic institutes, right? When you talk about the total talent base and the talent crunch that you're facing, is it maximum at the lower levels or is it across levels? Are you facing this problem at other levels as well?
I think it's across the levels.
Problem manifests itself in different levels. Okay. People who are not willing to work in the possibly they want to work.
It's an issue of competency, the competency gap, Jayashree. It's not just, the talent crunch. It's just like there's always a competency gap. Per se, the changes that are taking place and requirements of time, the way manufacturing was, say, about 20 years back or maybe 10 years back, things have changed drastically. In fact, in a totally different way. And we have not been able to upgrade, adapt and modify the needs of business, in fact, to those changes. And so you can't run, in fact, a bullock cart with kind of, in a computer age, and you can't be comfortable with it.
Right.
So the real issue is actually in consonance with changing times. The gap is increasing. So unless and until we actually address this larger issue, we'll keep on troubling. Unless you increase the size of the cake, the division and redivision, these pieces would become smaller and smaller. That's all. So
the reason why I put this question to you is because you're talking about investment of a lot of energies and training when you take a candidate from the academic institute and position them in your organization. Not ready to plug and play, you do need that buffer time to train and then roll out.
But my issue, just a minute,
Yeah.
pardon for that.
Yeah.
Why should we expect that a person who's just fresh from the academia should be up and running the next day?
Right.
That's never been. The classical practice has always been, in fact, and I think those few classical practices.
The management trainee.
You have to invest in people
That's
as an industry. The academia can take you this far.
Yeah.
It cannot take you beyond that because the point is that a student has to get that particular time to understand the very nuances of the academics also.
Right.
Because they perform, once he is sound on that,